The first question I wanted to ask was just for people to kind of get to know you and who you are. And that's let's start from the beginning. How did you first get into the sport?
Into cycling in general. I kind of got into it initially because my wife was had done a triathlon and really enjoyed it, and so she encouraged me to go out for one. And I did, competed in an Olympic tri, and realized that the only component of it that I enjoyed was the cycling. And I also happen to be the best at that one. Maybe that's why I enjoyed it.
Mm.
Um, and then fast forward probably 4 or 5 years. I wasn't cycling regularly, and then um, had worked with a weightlifting trainer for about a year, and picked up cycling again as like a cardio component, and really just fell back in love with it, even more so. And then pretty soon was doing 100 miles a week, and then 150 miles a week, and started riding with the San Diego Bike Club, SDBC, where a friend asked me if I wanted to start joining the racing team. And that's kind of how this all got started for me.
What year was that?
What year that was? This is only my second season racing. So that was like at the end of 2023.
And I think that's right about when we started working together, I think, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I joined the team and hired you like a week later.
Mhm.
I figured I knew nothing
Yeah,
about racing, and I wanted as much support as I could get.
I think we started working together maybe like November of 2023. You had
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a month or so to prepare for STBC camp. I came out
Hmm.
to that camp and we got to meet each other and ride together a little bit, and that was a really cool experience. So yeah, you've had
Yeah.
two seasons under your belt, 2024, and now 2025 is kind of wrapping up.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, when we first started working together, what was your fitness level? What was your mindset? And what were your expectations with working with a coach?
Um, yeah, that's a good question. So I feel like I was like reasonably fit. Like I had come up through the developmental ranks at SDBC and made it to like was regularly riding with the A group, which has a lot of active bike racers in it. I wasn't like leading the pack or anything, but I was definitely, comfortable mixing it up there. Um, and I, like a lot of people, I think, who are starting racing or are racing curious, was very kind of numbers focused. Like, what's my FTP? And that seemed to be like the gold standard for me, of like that's how fit I am as a bike racer. And that's one thing that's really changed a lot in working with you, is just that numbers are helpful, like for understanding what your fitness is, and but not to be locked into those things, because there's so much more to bike racing than just what one number can tell you. um and so like I think like general fitness, like that, I remember doing that first. Like I was pretty pumped to do it. We did a 1 hour FTP test, and I was pretty intimidated by it, but was really happy with my number, and put everything into it, and was cooked for the rest of the ride. I don't know if you remember that. And like it was like the first 15 miles, and it was a 100-mile ride. And what's pretty wild is I more or less rode that same number for 80 minutes at, like, you just had me do a sweet spot workout earlier this year, and I did it for 80 minutes, and I could have just kept going. And that was a cool moment to realize, like, oh, I'm way more fit than I was when I started. And I thought I started at a pretty like reasonably high level for a um like a just recreational cyclist.
Yeah, and I think that first year I really wanted to focus on the aerobic side. So doing a lot of
Yeah.
threshold, a lot of sustained efforts, just working on the aerobic engine more in general. And then
Hmm.
this year I've taken more of a like as we continue to work together, I think the training will probably get more and more specific,
Hmm.
based on the races you're doing, based on the new goals you have, based on just more experience and finding your niche, right? It's like,
Hmm.
because we've kind of figured out more of like what rider type you are, what your limitations are as a rider. And I think as you continue to progress, we'll just hone in on that even more. So
Yeah.
I love the philosophy of in the off season or the farther away from races you are, keep the training more generalized. And then as
Hmm.
you get closer to your target races, keep make the training more specific to those events. And so
Yeah.
I've taken like a long-term approach to that uh, philosophy with you as well, where
Can I, one observation that I've had through this process is that I think what it took me probably a season to wrap my head around what it must be like for a coach and like what to expect from a coach, that I think that I just had in my head like, oh, you'll instantly be able to analyze who I am, and then there's a formula for how to develop me. And what I've learned and come to appreciate in working with you is just how much of a back and forth it is, that you as a coach, like, need to test and learn how I am as an athlete in order to design a training program around me. And that's been really helpful to understand, is that there's not a formula for how to develop a rider, I would imagine. That instead, like, you have like every rider is unique, and you need to individually develop a plan. That's why working with a coach is so different than working like just like with a Zwift plan, or like a training pleaks, just buying a training plan from them. Like, it's very specific.
athletes are constantly evolving too. Like
Hmm.
you're gonna change quite a bit from the time we start working together to now. And I'd imagine you're gonna change quite a bit within the next year. And
Hmm.
oftentimes athletes are changing even faster than that, you know. They're
Hmm.
changing week to week, month to month. Maybe your life outside of bikes changes. You might switch
Hmm.
jobs or have a stressful month with work,
Hmm.
or get sick. So I think with coaching, there's all these moving pieces. And I think that when you're looking at a one-off training plan, there's a lot of assumptions that go into that plan. There's
Hmm.
assumptions that your life outside of bikes is going to be perfectly smooth, that
Hmm.
you're going to stay relatively stagnant. And that's why I'm not that big of a fan of writing an athlete like an annual training plan. I think it's
Hmm.
good to have benchmarks along the way and things to set
Hmm.
your sights on. But at the same time, in my experience of writing those annual training plans, usually things look vastly different 2 months into that plan than they did when you were writing that plan. For instance, if
Hmm.
you get sick for 2 weeks and okay, now we have to throw out the whole plan and
Yeah.
reassess and kind of like start to your level. And that's actually a mistake I've made with athletes in the past where I haven't necessarily um, reevaluated their fitness level after a break or made the appropriate changes when
Hmm.
things are evolving. Um, and that's something I've definitely learned over the years is like, okay, if you've taken a break or things have evolved and changed, you can't just jump back into where you left off. You have to reevaluate
Yeah.
and restart where the athlete is, not where you want the athlete to
Hmm.
be.
And we experienced that this season when I had a crash, right? And like, that was kind of right in the meaty part of the season. And I'm sure that you had to reevaluate, like, where, look, a lot of that was dependent on how I would recover and how I would, like, emotionally and mentally be after, like, coming back to the bike after, like, recovering, right?
For certain, how your mindset changes too, and how
Hmm.
maybe your confidence has changed,
Hmm.
and how that crash is going to affect future races, future training
Hmm.
sessions. I think that's you have to take all that into account. And yeah, like
Hmm.
everything has an impact, right? One training session is going to impact the next training session. A crash is going to impact, the next week of training, the next month of training. So I
Hmm.
think, yeah, you really have to look at training as the complete picture rather than like
Hmm.
in a vacuum where you're coaching, almost a robot that's going to just execute the workout,
Right.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
because that's just not very realistic.
Hmm.
um, yeah, you're also one of the most compliant athletes I've had the pleasure of working with, which I think is great, right? There's a lot of evidence that shows compliance leads to success. So my next question is, what motivates you to train so consistently?
I'm generally a pretty disciplined person anyway, and particularly when, when I have assignments, whether it's for work or in other, like when I was a student or other areas of life, I I come through with those things. And in this case, like there are like a number of dependencies. First, I'm like I feel like relatively driven to perform. I want to get better. And I know that in order to that complying with the training plan will help me get better. I'm trusting the process and you as the coach to help me achieve those goals. The other parts are like being on a team. It really is a big motivator for me. Like I love racing with my teammates. I love when we get out there and I have a personal goal that then works together with our team goals for a particular race. And I know that it's going to be hard for me to execute the plan if I'm not following the training plan that you've set up for me. So whether it's like working on like a segment of a training plan that's meant to like peak my or improve my sprint speed or my endurance or whatever it might be, that each of those things has a particular race impact. And if we are setting my goals in a race that are dependent on those things, if I don't follow that plan, it'll be a lot harder for me to execute or a lot more painful.
Yeah, so I mean, it sounds like it almost takes a support system to continue to drive that motivation. I feel that personally as well, where when I was racing on an elite team, I always felt the need to execute as best as I could so I could ride the best for my team and my teammates, and people were like counting and depending on me. I felt much more motivated from that than sometimes personal motivation even. I think the personal motivation tends to sway quite a bit throughout a season or even day to day, whereas like if you have that support network, I think it stays a little more consistent, right?
Yeah, and you don't want to let down people, whether it's in during a race. I don't want to let down my teammates. And for the training plan, like I've committed my money and time to pay for a coach, and you as a coach, like I don't want to waste your time. So I have all of these things kind of in my head, and I'm like, well, if I miss lift like strength training day, that's going to have an impact on how the rest of my like the training that you've set up for me, how successful that will be.
Yeah, and I think the compliance aspect is super important because as a coach writing a training plan, I'm trying to write a training plan in a way that builds on itself. And so if the compliance or the consistency isn't there, it's really hard to progress the plan. You almost stay stuck in the same spot and you don't really see much progression. That takes me to another thought. Maybe this is a little bit of a tangent, and it's something I see and you sometimes, and also some other athletes I work with. You fall into this camp of like highly motivated, disciplined athletes, which is it's amazing quality to have as an athlete. But sometimes I find that super self-motivated athletes, their self-motivation can be a little bit of their undoing as well, where like maybe your life is a little more hectic than you planned, and but you're still driven to get in, the full interval set or the full day of volume, even if you have to like skip a meal or if it creates more stress. And sometimes this can be maybe not the best execution of the training, right? Where it's like sometimes it's better to call your losses and say, okay, like today is just not going the way I thought it would go. Let me reevaluate and either take the rest or recovery or try to de-stress or de-escalate whatever the situation is. and then refocus the next day. Where sometimes I see highly motivated athletes, they'll kind of have this mindset of I need to get the training done no matter what,
Right.
which again that's a great mindset to have in general. But I'd say working with you, that's probably one of the bigger hindrances I see to like your training progress. And it's not like it happens all the time, right? It's not
That
like
you mean that I am so motivated to complete the training that I'll do it to my own detriment.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not like this is happening, on a weekly basis or anything like
Yeah.
that. But I think if we're looking for, the 1% improvement, that
Hmm.
would be probably something I see in you as working with you as an athlete.
Hmm.
Um, and I think part of that is just experience and growth as an athlete and
Yeah.
knowing
Yeah.
knowing what's going to be best for you in that situation or on that day, right?
Hmm.
And sometimes it's downgrading an interval workout to an endurance ride, and sometimes it's taking the day completely off. And
Yeah.
I think having the foresight and wisdom to make those calls
Hmm.
can be really challenging for an athlete.
Yeah. Well, and because like I said, I'm pretty like kind of assignment driven. And
Mm,
if you say to do 5 intervals at this, of this duration and power, that's what I do. And
mm,
I think what I can recall a handful of workouts this season where I've finished up and just been kind of beat myself up about it, like I didn't do even close to it. And what has been really helpful is to, like, when I report that to you, I mean, in every one of those situations have responded that it's okay. Sometimes you need to just know when to cut and just ride out the rest of the session or go home and like take a rest. That's been really
mm,
helpful to get that feedback, because I feel like I'm learning from that, like, that strict adherence isn't necessarily the best thing. That you can lay out for me what your plan is for this day or this week, but you don't know what it's like to be in my body or to be living my life at that time. And so it's this back and forth that it's responsive, right? That training is responsive to what the athlete is capable of at that time for whatever reason. And I wanted to mention too, one of the things that has been that I've really appreciated about working with you is that when I know I'm coming into a period that's going to be challenging, you are really good about, like, about adjusting the training plan so that it's not like, so that it can be the level of focus that would be appropriate in that time period. So right, so if I've got some work stuff that's going on and it's going to have me out of town, or it requires a bunch of preparation, you'll just ask me how many hours this week are going to be helpful for you, and then you'll create a training plan that works for that. And that's been really good. I don't think I had an expectation of that when I began working with you, right? That it would be that conversant throughout.
Yeah, as a coach, I'm always trying to find the edge of, okay, we need to do enough to create adaptation and get stronger. But if we're
Hmm.
going over that line, sometimes it
Hmm.
becomes counterproductive, and it's going to set you
Yeah.
back more than help you progress, right? It's like you're always
Hmm.
looking for this moving target that's changing week to week based on external
Yeah.
life stress, whatever.
Yeah.
And so like sometimes more is not always better. And like
Right.
you bring
We
up
just
a
talked about
point.
this, what, last week or the week before, when I came back from a 2-week trip overseas,
Mhm.
and I went a little hard, and that's exactly what you told me. You're like, it's cool that you felt good, but just be aware that sometimes you need to give yourself time to do that. Otherwise, like, you could say, instead of taking a week to get back into training, it might take you 2 or 3 now. So yeah.
Yeah, and I've done that myself personally so many times,
Hmm.
and I've seen athletes do that so many times, where you take time off of training and you come back and you're really fresh and motivated, and then you just like smash yourself the first day back,
Just
and
blow
and,
up.
and
Hmm.
then the quality of the training plan suffers for the next 3 or 4 days afterwards.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, a lot of training is it's figuring out how to do enough, but it's also figuring out what's too much, right? And being able to dial it back and having trust in the process and confidence that you don't need to do the maximum, or like sometimes good is better than perfect in a lot of instances.
Yeah. And I think too, like this kind of touches on, I think that I had in my head before we began working, I had this idea that like you go deep in training as deep as you possibly can, and then hope that you can match that in a race. And what I've learned is like, no, like you're not going to make me do my maximum in every interval session or whatever, because that's what races are for, right? That you're building the ability to race at a maximum level, and that doesn't always look like training at your maximum level. And that's been really kind of helpful to wrap my head around as well.
Right. Yeah, and those maximum efforts take a huge toll on an athlete. And I want that toll to be on a day that matters, right? During a race, not necessarily a training session. And it's like, yeah, we're going to go deep and practice riding really hard and practice going fast in training sessions. But yeah, in general, I want the athlete to finish a session and feel like they have a little bit left in the tank, to feel like they can go about their day in a somewhat normal manner and not have to collapse on the couch after a training session.
Yeah, especially as like an avocational athlete, masters athlete who has like a life and job outside of this. So this is for like purely for my enjoyment, and because it brings joy to me to do. But if it's going to make me catatonic for the rest of the day, then it's not really being part of my life. It just becomes the life.
Yeah, exactly. That segues really well into my next question, which is, how have you managed balance and training with the other parts of your life?
It probably depends whether you talk to me or my family. No, I do a pretty good job of it. I have a pretty flexible job. I work from home, and that gives me the ability to, if I need to do an hour and a half or 2 hours during the week, I can do that, whether it's early in the morning or over lunch or whatever. So I'm able to keep things pretty well balanced. And then weekends, we'll do a couple long rides Saturday, Sunday morning, and then I can go about my day and do the honey-do list around the house, or go do things with the family the rest of the day. So I think that I've balanced things pretty well. And I have it's not the most training hours that you'll see from a master's athlete, but I'm pretty consistently around 10-12 hours a week of training, which feels really manageable with my life.
Yeah, I mean, 10 to 12 hours of doing anything, it's a good amount of time for sure. And I think you can make a lot of progress on that time without necessarily needing to push into the upper limits, especially if the quality of your life or the quality of your work or family relationships is going to suffer because of it. And I think when working with a master's athlete, or let's say just a time crunched athlete in general, I think maybe there'll be periods where we kind of overload your ability of how much you can ride to get like a little boost of wherever we're at in the season. But yeah, in general, I think trying to stay a couple hours under that maximum number is going to be beneficial, because things are going to come up, things are going to change, and I'd rather undershoot a little bit than overshoot. Like I have a lot of times athletes will tell me they have whatever, like 15 hours to train, and then in reality it turns out to be more like 8 or 9 or so.
Yeah.
So
People get a little optimistic with what they want to commit to something.
Yeah, for sure. And athletes love to embellish how much time they actually have.
That's what's nice about Training Peaks, is that it doesn't let you embellish. It's the actual time.
Yeah. Were there any specific changes when we started working together that you feel made the biggest difference as far as training goes?
I was just like, before, I was more or less just doing group rides and going and riding, right? And just riding hard all the time. So I would just, I would go ride at like 3 times a week or whatever at what we would have considered at the time like probably high tempo,
Mhm.
that's just a lot of load um, for I think any athlete to do. And like I didn't see the point in not in going easy. Like
Right.
that seemed lazy to me. And one of the things, because I didn't know anything, right? And
Mhm.
one of the benefits of working with you has been kind of learning like that those easy days are really important for making progress. Those easy days are where a lot of your gains come from. And I mean, I've gotten a lot stronger and more consistent, I think, because I'm not just blowing myself up every week, right?
Mhm.
And so it's not just the raw hours put in and the raw effort. It's very kind of carefully organized. And again, like also understanding uh, um, how to prepare for a race. Like I think the first time I went and did a time trial was entirely on my own. Didn't know how to prepare for it besides just going out there and going hard. And we've seen what a maybe a 20 or 30% improvement, like minutes off my 20K time in the 2 years we've been working together.
Do you feel like there's a moment where you felt something click, like you reached a new level, or did that happen gradually over time? And
It was
kind of
kind
the
of
second part of
gradually and
this,
then all at once, right?
mhm.
I'm sorry, your second part?
Oh, I have a second part of the question where the other part was kind of what you just talked about was, has your volume changed that much from
Hmm.
when we started working together, or were you doing similar hours but just different kinds of workouts, like
Yeah, yeah.
riding tempo all the time?
So for the first part, like on in terms of progress, like I think it felt gradual at first. Like I remember even being like a little kind of bummed in the first few months, like, oh, like we're not going as hard, I'm not seeing improvement. And now that I've spent more time doing it, it's like, well, first of all, there's the adaptation period. Like I don't know, I didn't know what a coaching plan even looked like.
Mhm.
And I think I expected like, oh, 2 weeks in, like I'm going to see major boosts in my FTP or whatever, and that's just so very wrong. And again, that's being very locked into numbers as I felt like I was at the beginning. I think the probably the biggest like the sense of improvement that I had was maybe midsummer this year, where you had me. Um, we had moved out of like the interval section, like working on VO2 work and sprint power, and into sweet spot workouts. And you had me progressively increasing my sweet spot, and that you had me do a workout that was like 80 minutes at sweet spot and breaking it up. And I just remember being stunned at the numbers that I was putting down and the relative effort for doing it. Like I could have just kept doing it for ages,
Mhm.
and it felt so good to see in that on that particular workout just how strong I felt. That's such a great feeling. I remember messaging you afterwards saying, I don't know if there's a problem with my power meter or what, or if I just had a good day, but this is wild. And congratulated and celebrated with me, and then you're like, well, yeah, this is what we've been working towards. I'm like, oh, I get it now. I mean, it's
Yeah.
good to ask questions, but also trust, the process throughout. So I would say that is, a good like training moment. But I think like because that's workout phase, we can also look at like race finishes. And I think besides just getting stronger, that's obviously, a benefit of working with a coach. But the other thing, kind of the unexpected, I don't know why I didn't expect this, but one of the unexpected benefits was all of the help around understanding race strategy, how to
Mhm.
work with teammates, what it looks like to have a race plan going in, and then to execute that and adapt in the moment. And I feel like I've learned so much as I've gained more experience with that and brought that experience to our coaching sessions where you've been able to, like, we've talked through things and reviewed, and you've given me tips on how to, all right, well, next time if you did this in that scenario, then you might see like a different result. And I mean, I feel like between both seasons, like I'm super excited with the results difference that I've seen, like going the first crit that I did last season, and you were like, do this and do this, and I think you can, you have the strength to podium. And I remember going into that race going, that means I'm going to podium and it will be easy because I'm strong.
Yeah.
And how very wrong I was, how I did all this effort and came out like, I don't know, 16th or something. And when we looked at my numbers afterwards, you just kind of chuckled and you're like, yeah, you did way too much. Like you had the power, you just didn't use it in the right ways. And we refined that through the season to, come toward the end of the season was podiuming and winning races. And that felt super good to see, to observe like my own progress throughout the season as I learned more through the coaching sessions.
Racing is super dynamic, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
the increase in power doesn't always translate to improvement in results. I think that's like
Mm-hmm.
a big misnomer a lot of people have, where they're like, yeah, if I increase my FTP by 30 watts or whatever, increase my
Mm-hmm.
sprint power by 200 watts, I'm going to be winning races.
Yeah, it just
And
means
that's,
you're a better draft for the guys who are going to win.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it doesn't, if you're not timing those efforts correctly, if you're not
Mm-hmm.
positioning yourself in the right place to use that power,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't really matter, right? It's like racing is
Mm-hmm.
not power numbers.
Right.
It's whoever's the fastest across the line first, and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like more power is going to help you in almost every situation, but it's not
Sure.
necessarily going to be the
It's not a
ticket for like
guarantee.
winning races. Yeah, it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's and Adam loves to say this, it's necessary but not sufficient. So
Exactly. Yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
you need to build the power numbers. It's going to be the probability of your success is going to go up if your power numbers are better,
Mm-hmm.
but you also need to build the racecraft and the skill set.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the times the races you're doing, crit racing more often than not, are very skill dependent as well as fitness
Mm-hmm.
dependent, right? Even
Yeah.
more so than like a road race, for instance. You need to be able to
Mm-hmm.
corner well, position well. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I'm
And
working with
make
an
the right moves at
athlete,
the right time.
yeah, for sure. Timing is huge in bike racing. And it's really hard to convey these things as an online coach. I find that
Yeah.
probably is like one of my biggest challenges working with an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that's like really hard to learn unless you are racing a lot and you're getting this firsthand experience.
Yeah.
Because yeah, like to perform well in these crit races, not only are we going to work on improving your FTP and improving your sprint power, but we need to work on improving your skill set as well, like your ability
Mm-hmm.
to rail a corner at speed, your ability to be in the right position coming into one to go,
Mm-hmm.
um, your ability to, yeah, just know when to put effort in, when to back off.
Mm-hmm.
How have you learned how to do these things better? Like what's been your mindset in races for
Yeah.
improving that's apart from the power numbers, the fitness level?
Yeah, I remember at the beginning of last season, I think it was after I'd done the CBR crit and then did Valley of the Sun, and maybe we had done one or two more crits. And one of the tips that you gave me as you were helping me to develop these skills, because someone like you didn't know what I knew, or what would come naturally to me coming in. So we had kind of had to do some races to figure that out. And I remember you setting some process goals throughout. You're like, all right, in this race, I want you to focus on this particular skill. I want you to be, I don't care how you finish, I want you to be top 10 going into the last lap and top 5 at the last corner, whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
Or I remember one race, it was something as simple as like, hey, you didn't drink enough in your last race, you didn't take enough nutrition. So I want you to have one bottle of carbs on your bike, and your goal is to finish that by the end of the race. And I
Mhm.
remember thinking, like, that's just like, seriously, that's what. but it's had such a huge impact because I'm mindful of that. I'm mindful of the nutrition I'm taking on during a race so much more because of that practice, right? And it's, you can get so tied up in, the dynamics of a race that you forget about some of these fundamental things, that, like, if you don't have enough energy, you're not going to be able to finish anyway. So, or at least finish the race, where you want to finish. So those are a couple of the things. And then the other, like, I feel like when I finish a race and I'll message you or report through Training Peaks, like, these are the things that happened during the race. This is why I finished where I did. That gives us stuff to talk about, and it's information to take to the next race that we can work on if there were some mistakes that I made that I observed. The other thing that I think is just super important is racing with a team, right? And so if I've got 4 or 5 guys that I'm racing with, we have assignments, and if you don't execute, you can ask for your teammates' feedback on whatever. And that's really, really helpful, especially teammates who are more experienced. We've got some guys, like you work with David Morrison, and David's been a great teammate for, he'll see how I race, and he'll make some comments and encourage me to, try X or Y in the next race. That's been really helpful.
Yeah, I think I mean, what you just described is my opinion of the best way to learn how to get better at racing. Join a team, ride with experienced riders, and then have your pre-race meeting and have a post-race debrief. I think if you're racing as frequently as possible and debriefing every time you race with teammates that can give you their perspective, I think that's the best way to learn. And you're getting, maybe 5 different perspectives of, like, oh, you should have been here during this period. Because so many things in bike racing just take experience. Bike racing,
right?
The course is different almost every race you do, right? The weather is different, the field is different. You could race the same race 10 years in a row, and there's going to be a different outcome every single time. And I think it takes a lot of experience and just years of learning to like know, okay, I need to be in this position, for this preem lap, or I need to be ready for a counterattack once my teammate comes back. All these small nuances that are really hard to communicate until you're actually in the situation, and then you can debrief that situation and learn and take that experience in the next race you do. I think, like, the best way to learn to be a better crit racer, I always encourage athletes to go do Tour of America's Dairyland or Chicago Crit, one of these, like, crit series that last 10 days long. And so you can race every single day, debrief, learn something, take it into the next day. It's like crit boot camp, and then you come out of that experience with just so much more knowledge, and you're just a much better racer. But that just takes experience and a high frequency of races as well. How has your mindset towards training and competition changed since you've started? Do you have a different approach to racing now than you did beginning of 2024?
Yeah. So I remember I liked the idea of racing bikes, but I was kind of scared, right? As a 45-year-old guy who'd never done that before. And, like, the most experience I had was, like, riding in a pack, in a group ride. And, I was intimidated. My assumption is everybody here has done this longer and are better at it than I am. And to some degree, that's true. But what I learned, what is it you say, that you either win or you learn, right? And that's just a helpful thing to keep in my head. And even when you win, you learn. But every race, really, I mean, every race has dozens, if not hundreds, of opportunities to observe and learn something. And that's been a fun aspect of racing, is, like, because they're so dynamic, because every race is different, both because of the composition of the field, the conditions on the day, whatever it might be, that you just simply can't predict what the outcome is going to be. And I think like the race that I did yesterday, because it's like a 10 race series, I only did one of them, but I would imagine that people who did the whole series, they know that like it wasn't the same winner every time, and even those who won multiple times didn't win in the same way each time.
I mean, that segues great into the next question of, yeah, how did last night go?
Yeah.
And how did you take the things you've learned all season and put
Mhm.
that towards the race last night?
So one of the things I'll talk about a couple of different ways. So this was the Eldo race series, and it was the last race of like an 8 or 10 race season there. I had some teammates who were there. We had 3 other guys in the race. It was a masters field, and we went in with a plan that we executed extremely well. So I mean, learning to set up a race plan and kind of having a team that is not selfish and is made up of people who are not selfish, and they're in it for the team win, whether that's me crossing the finish line first or one of my teammates. That's really great to work with a team that has that kind of selfless approach to, like, a win for one of us is a win for all. And understanding that as a team, like to that end, that each of our roles has plays is important for accomplishing that. This race in particular, we went in with me as the sprinter to finish, but we knew one of the other teams, how they had won the previous week was with a 2-man breakaway, and it's because some of my teammates had done it the week before. And I knew going in that that team had, I think, 8 guys in the race out of a field of 35. So they had a lot of representation. We had 4. We knew that they were going to be hitting left and right to try to establish a breakaway. And so we assigned 2 of our teammates to chase those attacks. And I mean, to an attack, they chased every single one of them. That team, despite having really strong and experienced bike racers, they were not able to get away, because when another team didn't respond, ours did. So we never let it happen. And my team put me in super good position for the bunch sprint finish. And, I was in, as I mentioned to you before, I was in good position for a podium finish, and it just, again, races are dynamic, and someone crashed into me, and everybody was fine, no one went down, but I ended up 11th, so I was going fast enough to finish 11th, having even gone into the dirt 50 meters before the finish.
So it sounds like your team set out a plan to control the race for a field sprint. And then, walk me through the finish a little bit. How did your team help set you up to be in a position to sprint at the end?
Yeah, so we, like I said, they were chasing down all the breaks, and then coming into the last lap, one of our guys had the race had slowed down, and anytime a race is going to slow down, it's going to be a bunch sprint finish. If you've got some teammates who can burn a match, that's the best time to do it. So our guys went to the front and they just drove it, and it caused everybody else to have to respond, and it made sure that the sprinters wouldn't have the sprinters from the other teams especially wouldn't have full gas at the finish. It was a slightly longer race than your normal like Masters crit, so that worked in our favor too, because a lot of our guys work on have pretty good endurance. And then we knew that I was going to move forward at that point, and one of the other teams had a lead out guy and their sprinter, and so my plan was, if my lead out guy wasn't there, I was going to sit on their sprinter's wheel, which I did for the last lap. And they were driving really hard at the front, and I knew I was doing 10-20% less work than their sprinter was, so I was in a great position when the sprint opened up. And that's when things kind of fell apart. But it felt really good to have executed the plan exactly as we intended, and we were really responsive to the dynamics of the race as well.
Crit racing, especially, positioning is probably, I'd argue, the number one skill.
Hmm.
And putting yourself in a position to play a role in the race or to compete for the finish is it's a really hard skill to get there. And yeah, like having a team around you is helps a lot to put you in that position.
Hmm.
And the more you can figure out how to put yourself in that position, the better you're going to do. And eventually success is going to come just because it's a function of probability, right?
Right, right.
If you're going to come into the last 200 meters top five wheels, it's only a matter of time before you're hitting the podium consistently or getting the win even.
Hmm.
And it might
Yeah,
take you a few times of being in that position to kind of learn how to execute the finish, right?
yeah.
And a lot of times I want my athletes to be proactive rather than reactive. So
Hmm.
I see that a lot too, where someone's coming into the sprint finish and they just wait for someone else to jump and then they're going to react. Whereas I
Hmm.
like to encourage my riders, okay, know how long you're going to last with a maximum effort and pick a landmark that is going to take about that much time. And when you hit that landmark, ideally you're in good position. And I want you just
Hmm.
to open up your sprint and go as hard as you can and be
Hmm.
proactive about
Yeah.
it. And so the more you can put yourself in a winning position, let's say, the better you're going to be at winning
Hmm.
or executing that finish.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's just part of the journey. Um, Unfortunate that you went off the road in the finish. It would have been nice to wrap the season up with a podium. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it shows you're on the right track. And I think if you can come into this next season consistently putting yourself in that position, you're going to find yourself on the podium quite a bit. Because like
Yeah.
I think your power numbers have been pretty competitive probably since we started working together, and they've improved since then. But
Hmm.
I think you still have a lot to learn as far as like racecraft and just being in the right
Yeah,
position,
definitely. Hmm.
knowing when to use energy, when to hold back,
Hmm.
timing attacks, things like that. And yeah, the more you race and the more you ride with teammates, just the better you're going to get and the more consistent you'll
Hmm.
be performing.
Yeah, and that just comes with experience, right? Like that it's not like you said, none of us or very, very few of us are just complete, like power animals where you can just drive it and solo breakaway to win. That just doesn't happen all that often.
Right.
Um, so instead you have to rely on racecraft, which comes from just getting out there and doing it.
Mhm.
And I've seen results this season and last season, and I'm really looking forward to coming into next season with after a little bit of time off and building through an off season to really I think next season is going to be great.
Right now, what are your short term and long term goals
Yeah.
as we wrap the
uh
season up?
sure. So like short term, I guess would be like we've got a couple time trials coming up, and I'm hoping to set a PR in the first of those time trials. And then I think the long-term goal is to just get stronger through the off season, to work with my teammates to build more trust and strategy together, and I'm hoping to be able to go into like Valley of the Sun stage race next year, and be a podium contender in the Masters field. And uh, next year, I made it like in a well, 2 seasons now, from Cat 5 to 3, and I need I'm about halfway to Cat 2 now. So I'm proud of the progress that I've made, and I'm hoping to earn my Cat 2 upgrade early next season.
It's awesome. Are you thinking about Masters Nationals in the future, or is there like do you have like a, let's say, 3 to 5 year goal of like competing at the highest level you can or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, before cycling, I think I considered my like athlete days over as I was a high school and college athlete, um, and mediocre at best there, but enjoyed it. And then coming into like learning cycling and realizing that, even in, in my 40s, that there is an opportunity to go and to work together with a team to improve and perform as an athlete, and then to compete at the highest level. Like that's pretty exciting to me. So yeah, I'm hopeful to both compete on the national level on the road and in track. So that would be probably the next 2-3 years to go. Yeah, hopefully be a contender on the criterium and track, probably sprinting events.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great to have that in the back of your mind and just continue to focus on long-term linear progression.
Hmm.
I think that's really good for the motivation too, to have these big, maybe even scary long-term goals.
Right. Yeah, and it is intimidating because I race, well, I mean, here in Southern California, we have a pretty decorated and experienced masters racing field. Like there, any race or any group ride that I go on, any fast group ride that I go on throughout any given week has uh, many people with wearing state, national, and even world champ stripes on their sleeves. So
Mhm.
it's a pretty competitive area.
Right. Yeah, and if you can compete in SoCal, you can compete on a national level more often than not, because you
Hmm.
are racing a lot of the same people that are going to go to compete at national level events. Is there anything you'd like to add that we haven't covered, or maybe you have a story or a lesson that really sums up your progress working together?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think maybe it's just my personality or whatever. Like I am one of the greatest joys for me in doing this is like not only seeing my personal progress, but working with a team. And that's just the most exciting aspect of this, like having teammates who can celebrate in your victories and whose victories you can celebrate. And so last season I was pretty surprised and very grateful to have received the best all around rider award from San Diego Bike Club. And looking at it's a traveling trophy, so you see all the names from previous winners listed on there. And I know a lot of these guys, like as former national champs. A lot of big names. So to have my name on that with them, that's pretty special. Yeah, and I don't think any of that would happen if I, hadn't taken the plunge to join a team and to choose to work with you. It would have been a lot harder to have accomplished what I've accomplished.
For sure, yeah, and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's just having that support system. I
Hmm.
think, yeah, it really does take a village, right? You need people in your corner,
Hmm.
um, helping with the training aspect, the racing, but also just having camaraderie and having people to share experiences with, having
Yeah.
people understand where you're coming from. Yeah, working with a team is it's probably one of the best parts of cycling, because it's an individual sport with a team aspect, so you get kind
Hmm.
of best of both worlds. And yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's kind of unsustainable if you're trying to do this by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
And like the social aspect of it is, I think the unexpected benefit of it is that I have a lot of really good friends that I've met through cycling, and not only on my team, like people that I've met like on teams that we compete against, who we
Mhm.
still we'll ride to races together and even work together in races. So that's been a lot of fun.
It's awesome. Well, that's all I have for you today, Jeff. Thanks for taking the time and
Yeah, for
answering some
sure.
questions with
Thanks
me.
for interviewing me.